Welcome back to another Sunday Sewing Club tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to sew the beginner-friendly Margot shorts in the boxer variation. They'll become your go-to shorts for slow mornings and coffee runs. If you already have the pattern, you can find all the details for sizing, materials, printing and cutting on pages 4 to 10 of your instruction booklet. And if you don't have the pattern yet, there's a link in the description to buy it on our website. Now let's get into the tutorial. First, fold the top of each patch pocket over by 5mm or 1/4 inch to the wrong side and press. Fold over again by 2cm or 3/4 inch and press. Repeat this for all 3 patch pockets, then edge stitch along the folded edge of each one. Fold the remaining edges of each pocket over by 1cm or 3/8 inch to the wrong side and press. Start with the 2 diagonal corners first and then do the bottom and side edges. This order will help keep the correct shape at the bottom of the pocket. Make sure you repeat this for all 3 patch pockets. Now we're going to transfer the pocket placement circles onto the right sides of one front piece and both back pieces. To do this, place the pattern piece on the right side of the fabric and poke a pin through the center of each circle for your size. Then use an erasable fabric pen to mark these points on the fabric underneath. Align the top of each pocket with the placement marks you've just drawn, placing the wrong side of the pocket against the right side of the shorts. Then pin the pocket edges in place. I've just shown the front pocket here, but make sure you repeat this process for the 2 back pockets as well. Also make sure you're placing the correct pocket on the correct piece. So the smaller patch pocket goes on the front piece and the 2 larger patch pockets go on the back pieces. When marking the pocket placements on the back pieces, start with the one that lets you keep the pattern piece right side up, so you can see the placement circles clearly. Then when you move on to the mirrored piece, you can use the holes you pricked earlier as a guide. Now we're going to edge stitch around each pocket in one continuous line, but with an open rectangle shape at the start and end that I'm showing you here. This will help stop the pocket from falling open. Start at the horizontal stitching line, keeping the edge of your presser foot aligned with the pocket edge. From here, sew up to the top of the pocket, then pivot and sew a few stitches until you're at the edge of the pocket. Then pivot once more and edge stitch down the side of the pocket, across the bottom and back up the other side, and then we'll repeat this shape at the other end. From here we're going to keep sewing until we get to the top of the pocket. Then pivot and sew a few stitches across the top of the pocket until the edge of your presser foot aligns with the edge of the pocket again. Pivot once more and sew back down to the horizontal stitching line. You should now have 3 patch pockets, 2 on the back pieces and 1 on the front piece. Now we're going to sew the side pockets. You should have 2 pairs, 4 pockets in total. With right sides together, align the top of each pocket with the top notch on the side seam of your 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces. Pin them in place. Sew each side pocket to the shorts with a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Finish the entire length of all 4 side seams with an overlocker or zigzag stitch. Press each side pocket open. Then top stitch from the top to the bottom of each pocket to hold it in place. Now we're going to sew the centre front and back seams. First, place the two front pieces right sides together and pin along the centre front seam, making sure the notches on the curve line up. Now do the same with the back, so place the two back pieces right sides together and pin along the centre back seam, making sure the notches on the curve line up. Sew the centre front and back seams. Take your time when sewing around the curved sections, as they are harder to sew than a straight line. You may need to lift your presser foot occasionally to keep your curve aligned with the seam allowance marking. Overlock or zigzag stitch both seams and then press them towards what will be the left side seam when the garment is worn. Again, take care when pressing around the curved section. Now we're going to sew the inseam. Place the front and back shorts right sides together and pin them together at the inseam, making sure the center front and back seams match up neatly. At the hem of the inseam, ease the front and back together as the angles are slightly different. Sew along the inseam. Overlock or zigzag stitch the seam and then press it towards the back. Now we'll sew the side seams. Bring the front and back right sides together and align the side seams and side pockets. Start pinning from the waistband around the pocket and down to the notch that marks the top of the side split. So from the waistband around the pocket bag and down to the top of the side split. When you're coming up to the top of the pocket, you want to aim for one stitch inside the 2 rows of pocket stitching, because this will allow the seam to sit neatly when turned right side out. Pivot at the top of the pocket, making sure you keep a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance as you turn. Sew slowly around the pocket bag. Your seam allowance will not line up straightly because this section is so curved. The main thing you need to focus on is making sure the seam allowance lines up where the needle is. Take your time and lift your presser foot to adjust the fabric as needed. When you reach the other end of the pocket, again, aim for one stitch inside the 2 rows of pocket stitching. Make sure you're also aiming for 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch above the end of this stitching, as that's where you want to pivot and sew down to the top of the side split. Sew down the rest of the side seam, making sure it aligns with the 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you get to the notch, stop and backstitch, as this is where the top of the side split will start. You can then repeat these steps for the other side seam. Just make sure you pin it in the direction that allows you to start sewing from the waistband, as it's harder to sew the side seam from the split. Overlock or zigzag stitch the seam of each pocket bag. Press the side seam above and below each pocket open. Then turn the shorts right side out and press the pocket opening flat, folding the pocket bag towards the front of the shorts. Now we're moving on to the waistband. First, turn your shorts wrong side out again and place the waistband around the narrow end of your ironing board. Then fold the entire waist over by 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch to the wrong side and press. Fold and press the entire waistband over again by 4.5 centimeters or 1 3/4 inches, pinning as you go. Mark a 5cm or 2-inch gap close to the back side seam area to insert the elastic later. Edge stitch around the folded lower edge of the waistband, leaving the gap unsewn. You may need to remove the extension table on your sewing machine to make these next steps easier. Cut the elastic to your waist measurement plus 2.5cm or 1 inch, using either your own measurement or the one from the body measurement table on page 4 of your instruction booklet. To prevent fraying while threading, overlock or zigzag stitch both ends of the elastic. Hook a safety pin through one end of the elastic and thread it through the waistband opening. Feed the elastic all the way around the waistband and back out through the gap, taking care not to twist it or let the other end pull through. Overlap the ends by 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch and pin in place. Then secure the ends with a couple of rows of zigzag stitches. Tuck the elastic fully inside the waistband. Before adjusting the gathers around the waistband, sew up the gap. It's easier to do while the fabric is still flat. Pin the opening closed, making sure the fabric sits neatly over the elastic and that the elastic isn't caught underneath. Sew the gap closed, taking care not to stitch through the elastic. Gently spread the fabric around the elastic until the waistband looks even all the way around. Now is a good time to try on your shorts and check the fit. Add 3 rows of stitching to the right side of the waistband for a classic boxer short look. Start sewing at the side seam 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the top edge and sew all the way around the waistband. Keep the waistband stretched flat by gently pulling the fabric from the front and back with your hands as you sew. For row 2, sew 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the casing seam, which is the stitching that closed the waistband. You won't be able to see the seam allowance markings on your machine, so adjust your needle position until 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch aligns with the edge of your presser foot and use that as a guide. Alternatively, measure 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the needle and align the fabric by eye as you sew. Sew a final line halfway between rows 1 and 2, aligning by eye as you sew. Now we're moving on to the last step in the tutorial, the hem and side split. First, overlock or zigzag stitch the hem of both short legs. Turn the shorts wrong side out again and place one leg around the narrow end of your ironing board. Fold and press the side split open by 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch, taking care at the hem where the angle changes. Starting at the inseam and working towards each side seam, fold and press the hem up by 2.5 cm or 1 inch to the wrong side. Pin in place. The back hem is curved, so you may need to spend some time easing the fabric around the curve to get the hem to sit correctly. We're going to sew the hem and side split in one continuous line. Start at the inseam and sew along the hem 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch from the edge. Don't sew all the way to the edge of the hem. Instead, when you reach the side split, pivot and sew down the center of the split. Stop 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch above the top of the split. Then pivot, sew across the top of the split until you reach the center of the other split. Pivot once more and sew down the center of the other side. When you reach the hem, pivot again so there's a 1.5 centimeter or 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then continue along the hem, finishing back at the inseam. Repeat these steps for the other short leg. And that's a wrap on the Margot Shorts box variation by Sunday Sewing Club. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you learnt some new skills or found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so others can find it too. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok and Pinterest, and discover more patterns on our website. See you next time!